All right, Nathan, well, welcome on the Rental Journal podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me. A bit of a honour. You've had some real legends and icons of the industry, so yeah, I feel a bit honoured to be sitting here talking to you. So,
it's very nice to hear that. It's I enjoy it. Like I try and have a bit of a mix. Like I don't want to have just the legends. I want to have senior leaders, and I also want to I had a hire controller from Camden hire on last week on.
Yeah, that's great.
21 years old, fresh face. Just want to hear his piece because it's important that we don't just hear from one type of person.
Yeah.
Because it gives a bit of an array of people. So no, I appreciate that feedback. But
yeah.
So we are at the Hire 22 convention in Adelaide. So you would be one of the most popular people walking through, looking after procurement within Kennards Hire. So before we get into the Kennards Hire side, maybe you wanted to talk about how you first got associated or involved in the equipment rental industry.
Yeah, for sure. So I think like most people, I sort of stumbled into it. And it's a bit unfortunate, not many people sort of leave school, or unless you grow up in a family business that's in hire, you don't necessarily think, I'm going to be in the hire game for your life. But I left school in year 10, went straight into a traineeship as a butcher, so customer service type industry, and sort of felt at around the age of 17 that I didn't see a future in that. And tried a few different things, and then stumbled across a job in hire with John Woods and a company down in Wollongong called Oaks Hire. So I started with them as a yard hand in around 2013, 2014. So still just a young pup, 17, still on P plates, and started as a yard hand delivery driver with those guys. And then in 2005, Oaks Hire was acquired by Kennards. And been with Kennards since.
Wow. And so when Oaks was acquired by Kennards Hire, what was your role and how long have you been there at that point in time?
I'd been with Oaks Hire for say 18 months, maybe 2 years.
So still pretty fresh.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, very fresh. Yeah, so I was still just the job title was yard hand at Oaks Hire, so I came into Kennards Hire as a service person driver, so servicing the gear, doing the deliveries, serving the customers in the yard, those sorts of things. And yeah.
Were you a bit nervous when you heard that Kennards was coming in to buy the business?
Yeah, well, look, I was still young at that stage, so I didn't really know what I was doing. I was enjoying the job with Oaks Hire, and yeah, for sure, a big company like Kennards comes and you go, well, what's this going to look like? Am I still going to have a job?
Yeah.
But hindsight, I know now the way that Kennards look after people, and that's probably one of the last concerns that you need to have when Kennards does come in. But yeah, at the time, it's a lot of uncertainty, so yeah, you're not sure what's going to happen.
Kennards Hire seems to have a bit of a methodical process for acquiring these businesses, and if you look at New Zealand as the example, I've mentioned it many times. They've done a great job of sort of building that market up just through the acquisition with McIntyre over there and stuff like that. But there's heaps of businesses. They acquire businesses every year, and I think it's an opportunity to take on more challenges. And you look at yourself, you were in that yard role, and then today you're one of the senior managers within Kennards Hire. So it can be scary, but it also, when you work with a company like a big organisation like Kennards Hire, a lot of opportunities will arise.
Yeah, reality is it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So yeah, definitely. And to speak to the methodology of what Kennards have. When acquiring a business, yes, it is a fairly set process, and they're great at doing it. But one of the key components is the people, and making sure the people that come over are looked after and are welcomed into the business and feel part of the family straight away. And that tells you can see through the acquisitions that we've done, the people that are still in the business and people that have moved into senior positions within the business have come from acquisitions. There's a good chunk of people that have come from acquisitions. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm assuming when you were at Oaks and then when Kennards Hire came in and you were the yardman driver, it was probably a bit more flexibility and a bit more multiple roles. And then Kennards Hire came in as probably a lot more structure to the role. Yeah.
Yeah, yes and no, because Kennards is bigger and had more branches and things like that. That sort of opened up avenues to do different things within that role. But yeah, I mean, Kennards certainly does have that structure of certain roles in the branches and certain responsibilities. But nature of the industry, I mean, I've always got the saying, everyone in Kennards is a serviceman driver at the end of the day.
I like that.
Everyone, if you need to, you get out there servicing the gear and get ready for the customer. If there's a customer there, you serve them, you pick up the phone, what have you. So yeah, that's always say everyone's a service person driver in Kennards.
And so got into that role, and then I'm assuming you progressed through the various roles within the branch?
Yeah. So worked through the service person driver role into a 2IC role. Did that for around about 12 or 18 months, and then got the opportunity to take on a branch manager role at our Corrimal branch in the Wollongong area. So Corrimal was a small store, so it was a branch manager role, but it was also an all-rounder role because you had to do everything. You only had a couple of guys, so you didn't have that set structure of having your maintenance controllers and hire controllers. It was basically service person driver, 2IC and branch manager. So that was really good for my experience because I got to see everything in the business and be hands-on with everything. So I think it sped up my own development to some degree because you can sort of get stuck thinking, you've got to be in a big branch or a big business to get all these skills, but not necessarily. I think you've got to have a bit of both. And I've worked the branches that I come up in was a bigger branch, but I also went and worked at other branches within the network just to bring all that experience together. So
yeah, I think understanding, and I spoke about this a lot on the podcast, understanding what it means to actually do someone's job, like just adds so much more value to your leadership style.
Completely agree, yeah. And it's the benefit of promoting from within because people understand the business, they've been in different roles, and then when you come up and have to manage a team of that role, then you have an understanding, and you're not really asking anyone to do anything that you probably haven't done yourself in the past. So that adds weight, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and so got that branch manager role, smaller location. What happened from there?
So I was there for around about 3 years, and then got the opportunity and took on an area manager role. So looked after initially 5 branches on the south coast, so the Wollongong and southern Sydney area. And that was a great step for me. I was still young at the time, so I took that role at 25.
Wow, okay.
So that was a steep learning curve. Each of the steps were, but absolutely loved that role, and I did that for around about 9 to 10 years. Grew the area, looked after more branches, opened up new branches, so got to be on the other side of an acquisition where I actually led the acquisition and onboarded new teams and new branches and built those businesses up. And just towards the end of my tenure as an AM, also opened a greenfield branch as well. So yeah, learnt a lot, worked with great people and obviously still do. But yeah, that area manager role is a fantastic role. It's basically you touch all aspects of the business as an area manager with Kennards HRIA, and people being the most important element of that and leading the people. But yeah, great role.
And then so it sounds like you had a pretty fast career progression within Kennards HRIA. So to be an area manager at 25, that must be one of the younger people within the organisation to get to that level. So why do you think you progressed at that rate?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I was always wanting. I'm always chasing more, so I'm like always wanting to learn more, always want to do more, experience different things. So I didn't just settle and say I'm a branch manager and focus on my branch. I always wanted to be part of the area and contribute to the broader success, but also was always one to want to be involved in projects or acquisitions or new rollouts across the business or change, that sort of stuff. So I guess I was always focused on my role, and you have to do that before you can worry about anything else. But yeah, I'm just the sort of person, I guess, that is always looking for, all right, what's next? What else can I do? And where's the next step? And absolutely just love the role. So for me, this is a long-term career. So I just want to keep moving along. Yeah.
So you said that you were doing your apprenticeship to become a butcher, and then you obviously found the hire industry. What do you think about the hire industry made you realise that you wanted to work in it?
I think the people first and foremost is one of the main things that I love about the industry and Kennards HRIA for sure. I mean, the people in our business are fantastic. What I love about the industry is the diversity of the role. Like, no 2 days are ever the same. You might be doing similar things, 2 days in a row, but they're never the same. The next customer call is always different to the one before, and there's a new challenge or a new problem to solve. And I love having to constantly learn and think. And so the diversity is something that I preach to. If you want diversity in a job and a career, then HRIA is one that you should definitely look at.
Yeah, and I think when I was chatting to the chap at Camden HRIA, he was saying when he first joined the industry, he was trying to plan ahead heaps.
Yep.
It's very hard to plan ahead in the HRIA industry because customers need things now, like right now, and then they don't really have time to plan. Obviously, they're trying to solve a problem. And so, did you ever run into that thing where you were trying to adjust to the just-in-time mentality in the industry?
Yeah, you're right. The industry is reactive. We're serving customers and trades and people that get an issue now and need it solved, and they're also, tradies can traditionally be, known to be not that necessarily organised. So at the end of the day, when they want something, they want it now. So you have to learn to be quick and find solutions quickly. But you also have to have some planning and be able to forward think and see, what's happening in your area or your branch or what your customers are chasing, so you can make the most of those reactive moments and make the best of it.
Yeah, and then so area manager, what then happened? What was the next step?
Yeah, so area manager for around about 9 to 10 years, and then at the start of 2021, so last year, took on the role of head of fleet and procurement for Kennards. So that was a bit, a step out of the direct operations of the business and into the equipment side of things, which as an area manager I'd always had a passion for and interest. I'd been on our new equipment kit team for quite a few years, and had involvement in the HRIA Association, so I had already had relationships with a lot of suppliers and those sorts of things. And again, I was at the point where I was looking for a new challenge, and what more I can add to the company. So yeah.
And so you mentioned the exciting piece around the people of the industry. To lead Kennards HRIA in the procurement and fleet space, like you've got to have a passion for the actual assets themselves. And doing the 10 years as an area manager, 9 years as an area manager, you would have learned so much. So did you spend a lot of time like studying the equipment and figuring out over that tenure as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't say studying the equipment. It's just like you learn on the job. As I said before, you're constantly getting asked a question that you might not know the answer to, so you've got to find that answer quick. So you learn on the job, and just naturally, the equipment and service, is our business. So you have to know the equipment, and it's almost like an apprenticeship when you start. There's so much to learn, and you never stop learning either. So you have to have that interest. I think to be successful in equipment hire, you have to have some sort of interest in the equipment, and the more you drill into that, the more there is to learn, and time and on the job is how I've sort of developed my skills. And
so, over your tenure at Kennards HRIA, the way that Kennards acquire assets has evolved over the years. So, I'm assuming you would have been exposed to a certain point when you were a branch manager and an area manager. But when you were offered that position, you took it on. How much experience did you have in that procurement side?
I wouldn't say a lot of experience in the direct procurement side. I mean, going back years ago, we used to order some assets ourselves as branch managers. So it has changed significantly from ordering from your order books to into ordering through the base plan system for us, and through purchase orders, and that all linking up to the plant portals and plant numbers and the rest of that. So, but from a hands-on experience in procurement, very little, other than as an area manager, you're the one to request the equipment and understand what specs you need and what equipment you need for your market. So, I had the area manager experience of the procurement, which is a piece of the procurement puzzle for sure.
I think it'd be interesting to go down that path a little bit of how it's evolved. So let's go back 10 years.
Yep.
What was the process for the branches within Kennards HRIA to buy equipment?
Yeah, so essentially you had a dollar value limit where you would order the assets that you needed, obviously with area manager approval. So that was a direct order from branch to the supplier. So you would order the gear still through purchase order, but through manual books and manual invoicing, and you'd have to match them up, and you didn't have the system to streamline that. And then over and above that was obviously area manager and general manager approval, which would then go to, at the time we had Mark Zimmer and some other people in the company that also oversee some of the larger asset purchasing. Now, as it's evolved, all assets now are procured through our procurement team. So all serialised assets, anything with a plant number, is purchased through a central team. And obviously we have systems and everything in place to set standards for equipment, negotiate pricing, have the right contacts and make sure it's effective and efficient.
So if the branch thinks that they need a new asset at the moment, like what's the process for them? Do they request it up then?
Yeah, so if a branch manager needs an asset, essentially they would speak to their area manager. Again, there's certain assets where there's automatic approvals and that sort of thing in place, and then we would obviously check the network. Being such a large network, we're able to pull assets if there's underutilised gear and things like that. So we'll obviously look at those sort of options depending, again, what the asset is and dollar value and the returns we get on particular assets. But then from there it becomes an area manager and general manager conversation to get the capital approved. And then it all comes down to, once it's approved, no matter what the asset is, an area manager will enter their request into the system. That goes to the procurement team and we procure the asset.
Yeah, so maybe it would be good to touch on some of the benefits of centralising that purchasing. You've already touched on some of it around making sure you've got all the right documentation for the asset, maybe getting the right pricing and the right preferred suppliers, maybe making sure you can get the right utilisation. So do you want to just touch on some of those topics?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess starting with pricing, obviously you centralise it, so therefore you're using a number of suppliers rather than every branch ordering whatever they want from whoever they want. You lose your buying power then, so bringing it in, obviously you're able to manage that. You're able to use your buying power, negotiate your pricing and have your set suppliers in place and lock those prices in where you can. So for a period of time that's what you're going to pay for those assets. From a standards point of view, it's absolutely key, because again, if you've just got everyone ordering whatever they want to order, then you don't have a standard for Kennards HRIA, do you? You go to one branch and you'll get one different thing, you'll go to the next one, you'll get another thing. So through centralising, you're able to build what the standard is we need broadly for the business, make sure you've got the right safety components, the right up spec depending on what the product is for the market that you're serving, and you have that, you get what you need every time.
Yeah, and you mentioned an icon of the industry just before with Mark Zimmer. So I've heard stuff about him. I've never met Mark, unfortunately. Hopefully one day I can. But the rumour was that Mark had everything in his head. He was able to. He knew everything about Kennards HRIA with the procurement, and when he was at the point of wanting to retire, they needed to digitise the process. Is that sort of the process that occurred?
Yeah, well, I wasn't hands-on involved in that transition with Mark into the new function that is today. But yeah, I mean, I worked with Mark as an area manager, not directly closely in the team, but yeah, he was like the Bible for equipment in Kennards, and he had the relationships with the suppliers and knew what to buy, the technical specs of all the equipment, and just was just an absolute wealth of knowledge in that space for us. So yeah, I mean, obviously with him retiring, you got to be able to pull that information out and bring that in so we can continue to utilise it. So
yeah, no, it's like when you've got that sort of knowledge and you're working with suppliers so much, you can almost help innovate the industry as well, because you're letting them know our customers are giving us a bit of pushback on this type of machine for this reason, and so you're saying we'll buy more of these if you change it to have tracks or this or that. Is that a common practice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got to have that partnership with our suppliers that we grow and innovate and develop products together. And at the end of the day, they get their market intel, whether it's through other hire companies, end users, or us. But if the customers are saying something's not right, then we all need to have that conversation to improve it so we can all do better. I mean, if the customer doesn't want it the way it is, then we've got to find a product that is what they want, or fix, innovate and improve the product to what the market needs. So yeah, we continually have conversations, and even as new products are coming in, they might be at prototype stage. So we get invited to those types of conversations at times, and yeah, it's got to be a two-way street for sure.
Yeah, and as I said, so we're at the HRIA 22 convention at the moment. How many years have you been involved with the Environmental Industry Association?
So being involved, I took a spot on the New South Wales committee, going to say maybe 8 years ago. I was on the committee for a couple of years, and then took on the New South Wales president's role around about 5 years ago. So in total, 8 years. But prior to that, I'd been to some HRIA meetings and events and things like that, but actually, involved in the, I guess, the running and more hands-on with the association in about 8 years.
And attending a lot of the conventions?
Yeah, I think certainly since I've been the New South Wales president, I've been to all the shows. Obviously run the New South Wales meetings, but yeah, the conventions are obviously a big thing to get to.
And what do you think you get obviously looking for new machines, but what do you think you get the most out of attending these types of conventions? Yeah,
look, for me, it's getting to meet new people, so then there's the networking piece of it, and I can't speak enough to that. Like, you got to meet new people so you can obviously build those relationships, but also learn from, always try and learn from everyone that I meet. And, there's a lot of great people in this industry. So, one of the best things is building those relationships and meeting new people. Obviously, in the role that I'm in now, this is great for me, 2 to 3 days of getting to catch up with all these suppliers in a couple of days, certainly see the new products and look for what's next.
Yeah.
But yeah, to be able to catch up with everyone and either build new relationships with new suppliers or maintain and grow the existing ones, it's invaluable.
And then we had Andy Kennard on the podcast, and he spoke about the importance that suppliers play to the industry, and in particular to Kennards Hire, and you even have an awards night for your suppliers as well. So do you just want to talk a little bit about the importance that suppliers play to Kennards Hire? Yeah,
for sure. So we see our suppliers as business partners. It's not that typical just transactional relationship where you're a supplier and we're a customer and we buy from you. It's about having partnerships and relationships, and it goes to the point around growing and developing new products and new markets together. So yes, we value our suppliers as part of our business. Like they're part of Kennards Hire, and we can't. At the end of the day, we're an equipment hire business, so we can't be successful without the best product and the best suppliers. Yes, we negotiate hard, and we got really high expectations on our suppliers, but they're still. It's not us and you. It's not you versus us type of thing. We work on one together, and if there's issues, we work on it together. And it's a partnership. It's not transactional.
Yeah, I can't imagine a harder time to get into procurement in 2021. So you obviously were in the peak of a lot of supply and demand issues. So what's that been like over the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, to be honest with you. I often say if we can get through this, if I can get through this, on the other side it might be pretty smooth sailing. But I'm sure there's always going to be challenges and that sort of stuff. But yeah, certainly very interesting time to take this role. And we've got the reality is we've had to adapt really quickly and learn how to do things a bit differently, because to the point before we were talking about being reactive. That is the business. We're reactive. We get a call for a long-term hire, and you need to buy a new machine. You need that stock to be able to buy it. reality is right now that's near impossible. So you have to be able to forward think. We're certainly getting a lot better at using data. So particularly from a replacement point of view, and what products are hot and what products are not, and what new markets and things like that. So we need to be able to look forward and forecast, and in some ways look into the crystal ball and see what's coming, because if you just don't do anything, then you're not going to make hay while the sun shines in this buoyant market that we've got right now.
Yeah. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on the data side? Because I think that's the first challenge for a lot of businesses. If they don't have the data, then you can't report on anything. But if you do have the data, like Kennards has a very data-rich system. So what are some of the key metrics that you're sort of looking at when you're trying to forward-think those decisions?
Yeah. So obviously you're looking at things like age of equipment, like from a replacement point of view, you're looking at things like age of equipment, kilometres, hours, those sorts of things to go, all right, well, products have a shelf life. So you need to make decisions around when you want to turn those products around. From a growth and a depth point of view, you're looking at things like utilisation, so financial and time utilisation, and your return on your investment, your whole life of asset costs, and making sure that you're making a buck, which is what we're here for at the end of the day. So by using the data, that helps inform decisions rather than just having to go off gut or what you're seeing in the market. You're able to use some data behind making smart decisions.
Yeah, it always amazes me when I see smaller branches, not Kennards, but just smaller independent branches, and I ask how people report on some of the data, and they'll look out the window and they'll go, oh yeah, utilization's around 75% at the moment. It's like, how can you scale that sort of business? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, it's crazy. All right, well, look, working through those various roles that you've had, Kennards hires always onboarding new staff around the country and in New Zealand. If there was a serviceman driver that was starting today, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'd like to think if you're joining that you're seeing a career in the industry, and with Kennards Hire. So if that's you, I would say knuckle down early and start working hard. It's an industry where we work hard, so don't join if you think it's going to be all roses and cruisy, because and that's another thing why a lot of people love it. We do work hard, but it's rewarding and it's a great job. So get in, work hard, learn as much as you can, as you go. Don't be in too much of a rush. Like as I said before, you've almost got to treat this like an apprenticeship and learn the steps as you go. But also try and pick early what path do you want to go down. So being a diverse industry, there's different paths to go down. It's not just working particularly if you work for a company like Kennards, it's not just branch roles. You can go into sales, you can go into IT, you can go into major project roles, and the industry's evolving also really quick. So try and decide which path you want to go down, and then start setting your goals and working towards it. But be prepared to work hard.
Yeah, and the beauty of it that I love is that, let's say that you did choose a BDM role, hypothetically, or you wanted to be a product specialist or whatever it is, you also have different product lines that you can specialize. Let's say that you're in love with concrete.
Yep.
There's probably people out there that love concrete, and that's all they want to talk about.
Yep.
And then you can say, I want to be involved with concrete care or test and measure or whatever it is. If you want to specialize, that's the part that I think a lot of people in the next generation that are coming through don't realize, that it's not just standing behind a counter serving customers coming in and out. There's a whole array of opportunities, and it's figure out what you like and what you're good at and what you're interested in, and go find and experiment and learn from people and take on those roles. And over 10 years, your career progression will immensely grow, rather than you just sort of limiting yourself from your own I guess opinion of the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, there's so much to learn. There's different avenues you can go down. And so try and find something that you're passionate about early, and then start working hard and start learning. Yep.
Definitely. All right, well, this is sort of relevant, but it's probably more relevant to you rather than serviceman driver. If you can give advice to maybe younger self of maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, what would you say?
Yeah, it's another good question. I would say, similar type of answers, but I would say surround yourself with the right people first and foremost, especially when you're younger, it can be easily influenced. So surround yourself by the right people, and again, start learning from those people and pick what you want to take. What I've always tried to do from the people that I look up to and that have sort of helped develop me is you take just bits and pieces, and sometimes those pieces are things that you don't want to do and don't want to be, but most of them are positive, right? So just surround yourself with the right people, start picking those pieces and moulding yourself into what you want to be. Get involved, in things like the HRIA Association. We've got the Young Professionals Network, so strongly encourage, involvement in that, because that's got the networking piece. You start building relationships early, like I keep going back to, don't be in a rush. You don't have to be in a rush. There's a lot to learn, but knuckle down and be clear where you want to go, but work hard.
And then you spoke about the Young Professional Network, where there's a mentoring element. Is there anyone in particular that you think has mentored you over your career so far?
Yeah, look, so many, because of how I try and learn is picking pieces from everyone. Like obviously there's the big guys like the Kennards family, Peter Lincoln, people like Alan Besling. They've sort of been the people that I've looked up to and sort of idolised, through Kennards. But I've had great branch managers and area managers when I was young coming up. I probably credit two people for two of the biggest steps in my career, which would be Steve McDonald, who works for Shaw Hire now.
Legend.
I mean, I always say I wouldn't have become an area manager without having him. When I was a branch manager, he enabled me to develop really quick and mentored me as a branch manager, and then I was able to take the area manager role at a really young age, and I strongly credit that to Steve and the person he is, and how he helped me develop and mentor me. And then as an area manager, I would say Darren Simmons, who was the New South Wales General Manager, he enabled me to, he mentored and developed me, but enabled me to have the autonomy to go out there and learn and grow and build my own local business as an area, and got me to a point where I was able to then take this next step. So many people, and I'm sure I'm missing plenty because there is so many, but the whole industry's just got a wealth of people that you look up to and learn from, and they might not be directly thinking that they're mentoring or helping you, but if you build the right relationships and that's what you want to get out of it, then you'll do it. Yeah,
and even when those people are mentoring the next generation or anyone that's going through a business, they're always learning as well. Like they're learning on, like you would find it as well. Like when you're trying to teach someone that's at a branch manager level or 2IC or whatever it is, and you're teaching them things, and you think, oh, you know what, that maybe there is something else that I can sort of do in this area. So like, it's not just to start and finish and now I'm in this role. It's constantly evolving and improving and thinking of, because the industry is constantly changing. So you need to always be thinking of different ways that things can be done. It's not just a linear line.
Absolutely. As I said, you never stop learning. And I think another great thing about this industry is people are so willing to share and have open discussions and as I said, indirectly help develop people. And I think people enjoy that. I know I do. I'm only ever too happy for to help people or share my own experience. And I still feel young and I still feel like I'm very much learning on the job and learning as we go. But if I can help anyone at any time, I love that. So, and I think most people in this industry are the same. Like, we're just there's so many relatable people. We're such a similar base of people within the industry that get along so well, and that's why events like here at the HRIA shows, it's just awesome.
Yeah, because it's a unique industry where like you even get mentored by your competitors, which is quite amazing, isn't it?
Yep. It's
how many industries can you say that you're going there and your competitors giving you tips on how to be better? Like it's very common.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously you're not out there sharing, commercial information and those sorts of things. But yeah, we have open conversations around, what works, what doesn't work, and that's great. I mean, that's what this was built of. The Andy Kennards of the world built this association for that, to share and grow the industry and look at the results.
Have you travelled overseas much to learn about other markets?
I've done one trip over to a ARA show a few years back, which was great. You see, you get to see a different way of how they do things over there. Obviously, everything in America is much bigger and it's much bigger scale, and the show is massive and the people are great. So yeah, I've done that, and that's something that post COVID now we're certainly keen and looking forward to getting back out to doing. Obviously, the last couple of years it's been on hold, but I'll be looking to do a bit of that for sure.
Awesome. And so, how do you define success?
Yeah, I mean, in a couple of ways. I would say, there's the obvious. Obviously, when you win or you beat a target or achieve a goal, that's success, right? Most people would say that, but to me, in a lot of ways, success is a feeling. Like you don't necessarily have to win to be successful. It's a feeling of accomplishment. Whatever it might be that I'm doing. Have you had fun? Have you enjoyed it? Have you learnt? Have you grown as a person? Like, they're all elements to me, that would make me feel successful. So it's not just about kicking a goal or hitting a target. It's about a feeling of success.
Yeah, it's quite amazing that once you get that feeling, it just motivates you to do even better.
Yeah. And
I think if you don't love what you do, it's hard to get that feeling, and it really can restrain you on what your potential is.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that feeling of success is what drives a lot of people, and when things get hard and things like that, and you're feeling unsuccessful, that can be demotivating. But yeah, you've got to love what you do. You've got to chase that feeling of success, whatever that is for you, and that'll push you forward for sure. I mean, that's what gets you going.
Awesome. All right, Nathan. Well, thank you for coming on the Rental Journal podcast.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Cheers, mate.